yeah. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Actuali Podcast. I'm Chris.
I'm DJ.
And today it's Meaning Making 101, our weekly live stream series where we consider all things going on in the world today and how we can be the best versions of ourselves in the face of even the most dire circumstances. How can we change this world from the inside out is the continuous study of this podcast series. We invite you guys to grow and learn along with us because we verily do indeed believe we can be that change we wish to see in this world, and that is most likely the most effective way to create the lasting change and peace that we seek to see. And we ain't looking for perfection. We'll never get there, but we have an infinite road to grow in that direction. We can always improve. This episode, we are going to dive into the subject of non-dual Christianity. What is non-dual Christianity? Well, we are about to find out together.
It's a heresy. It kind of is, but there's a point to be made, and it's worth talking about.
Some people might consider it sacrilegious, heretic. I believe that, God created everything, and He is the source of all of our ideas and insights. He is the infinite. He is the unfolding, eternal source from which all things spring. And so I believe that God has His way of speaking in different tongues and different flavors, so to speak, from different peoples and cultures in different times and languages and ways that they can understand from their perspective.
Yeah, and in the Bible, it doesn't say this directly, but it alludes to the world is knowable. As in, we can use, science and philosophy to figure out the world and the universe, not just, okay, this is how it is. This is what the book says. Everything's exactly like that. And if you ask a question outside of that, you're going to hell. It doesn't say any of that.
No.
Now, mind you, heresies can be dangerous because they can lead you into dark areas and stuff like that. If you get into the deeper Gnostic, Hermetic heresies and the we control the world stuff, it can be dangerous. But
yeah, that might be another rabbit hole to dive down some time just to cover that subject matter and speak to why it is indeed perhaps dangerously heretical. But from this perspective, from where we're coming from, we believe in this non-dual. Well, I personally, I'm not going to speak for DJ here, but we are entertaining this idea that everything is one, everything is interlinked, everything is intrinsically connected. Non-duality is that kind of philosophy or way of looking at the world, and you see this in ancient all things that stem from Hinduism, first off, such as Buddhism, yoga, Advaita Vedanta, and so forth. We also see it, of course, in ancient Christianity and Christian mysticism. We see the non-dual insights through Native American spirituality and all spiritual systems around the world. So all the great wisdom traditions. What is it that these sages, these ancient wise ones, are talking about when they speak about this ineffable sense of oneness with everything and everyone around you? These peak states that we covered previously on when we covered John Vervaeke's Awakening from the Meaning Crisis series. And this is, according to the sages and the wise ones, something that all humans have access to. And it is actually our true self, which is in perfect alignment or the continuation or the expression of Brahman or Source or God.
And let us know, guys, if the audio on this video is a little low, because it is a little low, and then we can
Boost it
boost it a little bit in OBS for you. But we'll deal with it as it is right now.
Yeah, and I'm gonna speed this lady up. Let's try 1.15 and see if that's too fast. Let's dive on in. So let us begin. This is a video created by, I'm not sure if this is her name or not, Shanti Sadan, but that is the name of the channel. It's linked in the video description. Check it out. We're going to cover the first half tonight, guys. Let's go. Here we are. We're jumping on in.
There is a basic oneness of the teachings of Christ with those of Adhyatma Yoga. Consider the opening words of the Gospel of St. John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not.
Can we pause
These
there real quick?
verses
Yes,
indicate
yes, let's do it.
So, in the beginning was the Word, that would be the Logos, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So this is, there are those who will make the claim, and I kind of subscribe to this, is the Word, you could see that as Jesus Christ before the flesh, was with God and was God, and this is at the very beginning, the beginning before the beginning was a relationship, God with itself, as itself and by itself. And that relationship is love. That's why, in Christianity and all of the truer religions, love is the pinnacle, right?
And it is synonymous with the word God. God is love in the first
Yeah.
epistle of John.
Yeah.
God's
so,
love is perfected in us. A beautiful concept.
and all things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. So there's nothing outside of God. So, the idea that, you are God, I am God, we are all God. We're not, God in its entirety, but nothing in us in reality is outside of this God, right?
Yeah, and this notion is a little bit different than pantheism, where everything is one, everything is God. This one is panentheism, where there is an absolute God that is outside or beyond or transcends reality, and then all of reality is also God. He stands beyond it, and he is all of it. He's not just all of it merely. So that's an interesting distinction. Let's go ahead and jump on back. I'll pull this back a few seconds. Here we go. That's an pull this back a few.
These verses indicate that the whole cosmos is divine in origin, and that divinity is the source of light and life. The same message is found in the Upanishads. There, the great reality is called Brahm, meaning the absolute or the supreme spirit.
Brahman.
As we read in the Chandogya Upanishad, all this is Brahm. This universe is born from, dissolves in, and exists in that. Therefore, one should meditate by becoming calm. Om.
Love how she says Om.
This truth underlies our experience. It transcends the mind, but there is a spiritual faculty in us, a latent power hidden within the mind, which, when awakened, will enable us to realize ultimate truth directly and be free forever.
Okay. So she's talking about the quest for enlightenment there, the capacity that all beings have according to the sages and the wise ones of our past.
And you could like equate that, say, since we're talking about Christianity and Hinduism in this non-dual sense, the quest towards enlightenment is the quest towards being more one with God, right? So the idea of the Christian heaven isn't, you're sitting in robes and sitting on thrones and you're there. You're actually directly in the light, the glory of God, the shining of God, closer to God, enlightenment. Glory means to shine, right?
Yes, yes.
Enlightenment, glory, glory to him, enlightenment to him.
And
So
mint in Latin is mind, so enlightening the mind.
Yeah.
This is also self-realization is another term for enlightenment. And what we're talking about with self-realization is a capital S, ultimate true self, rather than the egoic psychological sense of self that we hold in our minds that we think we are, or something much deeper, according to the ancient Vedic scriptures. And here we can actually look at really quickly. Let's get into definition of Brahman to take it a little further.
clickety click, 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 clickety click, click. We'll bring it up here.
Yeah, there you go. In Hinduism, Brahman is the ultimate unchanging reality. It's like the underlying substrate of or universal consciousness. So it's a universally conscious substrate or underlying flux that underlies and pervades all existence. It is formless, infinite, eternal, and beyond human comprehension, transcending time, space, and causality. Brahman is the source of all things. So Brahman is what comes before even the personified God. Brahman is the source of all things, distinct from the material world, yet immanent within it. and is considered the essence of the Atman, the individual soul. So the Atman is a term for the true, ultimately realized self that we all have access to. That's actually synonymous with our term, actual I. What is the actual I? Realizing the unity of Atman and Brahman through spiritual knowledge leads to liberation or moksha. In texts like the Upanishads, ancient Vedic poems, Brahman is often described as Sat Chitananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. And then here we can look at the definition of Atman, because this will come up shortly as well. In Hinduism, Atman refers to the eternal unchanging self or soul that resides within every living being. Distinct from the physical body and mind, it is considered the true essence of an individual, inherently divine and identical with Brahman. Interesting. The universal consciousness or ultimate reality. So the true self is actually identical with Brahman. We are all expressions of the infinite, the universal conscious or ultimate reality. According to Hindu philosophy, particularly in the Upanishads and Advaita Vedanta, the Atman is boundless beyond birth and death, and its realization through self-knowledge or self-inquiry, jnana, leads to liberation, moksha, from the cycle of reincarnation, samsara, which is, of course, a Hindu notion. The journey to understanding Atman involves transcending the ego and material illusions to recognize its unity with Brahman. This probably sounds familiar to a lot of people that have studied Buddhism as well. Recognizing your attachments to egoic sense and egoic sense of self and the things that you want. So this is often described as tat vam asi, thou art that. Very good. And this is synonymous, I think, with Jesus's expression, I am, that I am.
Well, that, and also if you look at the Christian depiction of what the soul is boundless and beyond birth and death as well. The soul is infinite unless you destroy it. And that's what I think, hell is, you destroy it by complete separation from God, from Brahma, or Brahman, from, your separate, willful separation from source is hell. And, you can think, what's the worst thing you can do to a person, really? Well, there's a lot of bad things you can do, but, separate them, put them in seclusion, it's, how we punish kids, go to the timeout corner, separate them from that. That is hell. So the soul is infinite. And in the soul, just another word for the soul, the Atman, is infinite as well. Because, there's the idea that the soul was before you were,
that's right.
Before you were alive. And then it was, and then the body of the baby was invested with the soul.
Yes.
At conception, so. Yeah. So, they're talking about the same thing. And Hinduism, I would say, is probably the oldest actively practiced religion on the planet. So it was getting at these ideas long before Judaism and Christianity. And I'm not saying that, like Hinduism is right and the others are fakers. It's just humanity has a long history of trying to figure out the universe, its place into the universe and the divine.
Yes, and you could even say that God has been working through us in various cultures throughout history for a long time.
Yeah.
And just finding whatever way that he can speak to it in a language that culture can understand at that point in its history. Yeah. So beautiful, beautiful concepts. Hinduism is a beautiful spiritual system full of wisdom that is, I believe, worth studying. The mystical Christians have no problem with this. Perhaps some fundamentalists or those that take Christianity purely literally might have some problems with this, such as you were talking about hell just now. I don't know that I believe hell is eternal, but I do believe that when we die, we're in a timeless state. And if we are reliving our past mistakes, we could be in a realm, and it might as well feel eternal because it's timeless in that sense. And we go through the learning and ultimately the healing of those things that we inflicted on others and ourselves in our life. And we come to a true state of perhaps understanding and appreciation of where we went wrong. And then I think we are back into heaven and in the blissful state of oneness with God and everyone that we loved throughout our lives.
There's an interesting depiction of heaven and hell in the movie.
I'd like to hear what you guys think about that, though, if you disagree or agree. Sorry. Go ahead.
But so the movie What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams.
Oh, yeah.
He dies and, goes to heven, and he first shows up and he's in like this oil painting. And the whole quest is he's trying to find his wife, and then eventually has to do the Dante's Inferno thing and go through hell to go find her. And then she's trapped in a isolated, cold, dusty, dark place, and he sees her, and she can't break out of it. And it's just, hell is what you make it, and you put yourself in your own hell. And the same thing with, the opposite, or
Within
the
our
same thing,
lives,
but the
yeah.
opposite depiction of heaven. It's like, you, in this movie, you go to different places according to, where you're at, what you want,
Yeah.
what you want to do and continue. Some people are, forever scholars. Some people just want to learn to fly and have some fun and, hang out in the sun, and other, whether it's like that or not, I don't know. Nobody knows. I don't think anybody can claim that they know. Other than you will be in the glory of God. That's what
Yes.
heaven is, the shining,
Yeah,
the light.
Heaven is like connectivity and unity.
Yeah.
Whereas hell is like disconnection and
Sure.
suffering.
Well, actually, and I forget
It's samsara.
which part of the Gospels was it. The Gospels, I think it was the Gospels. But the question came up is like, well, what if your husband dies, and then that husband dies, and that husband dies? Like, which husband do you go to in heaven? It's like, well, there's no husband and wife in heaven, because you're all, basically one with God. These distinctions of husband and wife are in the worldly sense, which are very important in the worldly sense, because husband and wife mimics the relationship of reality and God, but
yin,
in
the
the
yang,
but in the physical sense. So I guess the idea of heaven isn't, we're all just sitting there with our thrones and everything's cool and I'm me and you are you. It's no, we are all we, and we are all in the glory, the light of God.
And since we're infinite and part of God, we can tap back into that life we just lived. We perhaps can even oversee our loved ones that are still alive. Things like that, I believe, could still happen. We could be living that and multiple other experiences at once, because I believe we would have the perfect free will of God in that afterlife experience.
That very well may be the case, because there's, what the Catholics do is they pray to saints, and not like in a worshipful way, but like like, here, can you help me out? Like, God and Jesus are busy, big things, everything, but they've got
the
a saint
angels
for
might be
this, they
busy,
got
but
a
the
saint
saints,
for
yeah.
this, they got a
Yeah.
saint for this, and
Yeah.
depending on what your need is, you can.
It's interesting because that relates with Hinduism and all of their different faces of God, all the different other or under gods that are underneath the main personified God. And then, of course, there's Brahman.
It would be interesting to get into the hierarchy of the celestial forms as far as Christianity sees them. It's really interesting, and the angels aren't the perfect humanoid beings with wings. They're quite disturbing if you look at the way the angels are described. But each angel has a, what would you call it, a portfolio of things that it covers, just like every face of God has a portfolio, or in Hinduism, a portfolio that it covers. Some angels are protectors, some are judges, some are watchers. You've heard that. Some are fallen.
Because in Hinduism, there's Brahman, which is the absolute source, and then there is Vishnu and Shiva. And Vishnu is like the personified face of God, like the way Christians think of God as the Father. Vishnu is the preserver. Brahma is ultimately the creator. Vishnu is the preserver, and then Shiva is the destroyer. So that's the yin, the yang sides of God, the Alpha and the Omega. Because God, if you look at that name and break it down as an acronym, God would be generative, omnipresent, destroying, for instance, or divine, whatever you prefer. But God certainly did create a universe that is birthed, goes through a life, it creates, and it dies, it ends.
Well, just imagine if life didn't die, we'd just be completely covered with mats of organic masses all over the place, and then actually probably wouldn't be able to make new life.
No, we'd never be able to differentiate ourselves or evolve or anything like that either, so we wouldn't be able to perfect as a species our capacity to interact with our environments. So and then after the other deities that go underneath Brahman and Vishnu and Shiva, all the other faces of God is like Lakshmi for wealth, Saraswati is like the goddess of art and knowledge, Durga is power, and so on and so forth. Krishna is an incarnation of Vishnu, Ganesh. It just goes on and on. There's hundreds.
And one way I like to think about it, because I don't believe in the Hindu gods as like gods or anything, but these are us trying to get a hold of ideas, then creating a metaphor and a an icon to look at an idea, to
Right.
understand the
Yes.
idea and the nature of the idea. And even
Yes.
though Shiva is the destroyer, if you remove the moral judgment component of it, it's not evil. It just is what it needs to be to continue life.
Yes. Yes. The growth and the advancement and
So,
evolution of life requires death.
These gods, yes, if you're Hindu, you see them as gods, but I'm not Hindu. I see them as ways to
Understand
keep track of the nature
different
of
aspects
things.
of
Yeah,
God,
yeah,
for
yeah.
instance. Yeah.
Yeah,
And the nature of reality.
And I think that's what humans do. Like if you look at all the different pantheons from all around the world, they all have their different characteristics.
Right.
And you had gods of war. You had gods of fertility, which could also be gods of destruction because fertility has a destruction component as well. Like Quetzalcoatl, the dragon god, who's the god of maize and the fertility of the maize, but is also a dragon of destruction. So
Yeah.
humans were just trying to understand how the universe works, man.
Yeah. And it really could all be God expressing himself as he does in those places and times. And if God is the infinite, then perhaps he can express himself in these multiple different forms that would be fitting. So, yeah, ultimately all gods are seen as expressions of the same divine reality in most Hindu philosophies.
Yeah.
So let us continue with Miss Shanti now. Jumping in, let's go.
The infinite and transcendent nature of this ultimate light of spiritual reality is indicated in this verse from the Mundak Upanishad. There the sun does not shine, nor the moon, nor the stars, nor do these flashes of lightning, what to speak of fire. Through his shining, everything else shines. By his light, everything is lit.
That does parallel very well. Beautiful.
In the Upanishads, words are used to lift our mind to a realm that is beyond words. In the Christian tradition, great art also attempts to raise our mind to a realm that is beyond forms. Consider the Nativity painting by Gerken Totzing Jans.
I'm going to pull this
There are
out
the
so you can see it.
forms, yet there is a mysterious light that transcends the forms,
Coming from-
symbolized by the self-luminous form of the child Christ.
You pause it.
Is
Yeah,
not
that's
the art
beautiful.
So, what's interesting about this is, well, of course, the baby Christ is emanating light from it, but also it's put. You see the vessel that it's in that feeds animals.
Wow.
And what is Jesus? A shepherd or a steward of the animals, a shepherding of people. And also, what do Christians do? We eat the body and drink the blood of Christ. So, these are symbols. It's this, to feed us with light. This being has come to earth to feed us with light. And I love the way that,
I think that, so rather than it being like a cannibalistic ritual,
Yeah.
it's more of embodying Jesus.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's all this symbolism about embodying the way of, especially since the original Christians were just called followers of the way before they were called Christians as a slur, which they eventually took on ownership of and proudly. But initially they were just called followers of the way. So the way being embodying that way of being. So all kinds of interesting symbolism, ingesting, taking Christ into his way of being into you.
yeah. So I just thought it was interesting. And, I'd say take the time to go look at like old Christian art and really like get into it. You have your cherubs on the left side, you have the lowly beast in the background, not highlighted very well. The mother looking at this child, that like the first time really seeing this child and the light emanating from the child. And I don't know if you can see it on your screens, but there are little, flecks of, light coming off of the child as well.
There's a
Which
lot
might
of
be
rays.
it might be artifacts from previous brush strokes and stuff, and then through the fixing it up process, they become more apparent. But I just thought it was really interesting and really cool to point out the fact that Jesus in the manger. What's a manger for? It's for feeding the animals. And what are we? We are the animals. We are the herd, essentially. So just some pretty cool symbolism in there.
Very, beautiful paint.
Luminous form of the child Christ. Is not the artist attempting to indicate the supreme source of light through which all else is lit?
Yep.
Looks
In the
that way.
first epistle of John, this light is declared to be the very nature of God. God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. This light is our origin, our true nature. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says, "If they say to you, 'From where have you originated?' say to them, 'We have come from the light, where the light has originated through itself.'"
Whoa. Whoa, that's trippy. We have come from the light where the light has originated through itself.
Yeah, there's that, the word was with him and was him, and now through him.
So that's what he meant by follow me. He meant follow this way of being.
Yeah,
That might
it
be
doesn't
seen.
mean dress like Jesus and put on the the water walker 2.0 sandals and live the hippie lifestyle and all that stuff. But it's like live the best that you can of your understanding of what he was. And I believe Jesus, in his human man form, was the greatest example of what a human can be. He was also God, but his flesh form was the greatest that we could be, that we could do. And, we'll never get there. Even the saints never got to the level, the sinless nature that Jesus was. But it's still a great point to shoot for.
Yeah, he's given us an infinite goalpost with infinite room to grow towards. So there is no cap on our potential improvement, which is actually an incredibly exciting prospect. We could continue on 10,000 years from now and still be bettering and improving our way of being.
Yep.
That's beautiful. I love that. So open-ended. It's infinite.
The light which lights our mind and the light of God are the same when rightly understood. Of this supreme light, it is said in the Chandogya Upanishad, "Now that light which shines beyond this heaven, beyond the whole creation, beyond everything in the highest worlds, which are unsurpassingly good, it is certainly this, which is the light within a person." We can realize this light because, in the words of John, it is the true light which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. There is a supreme spiritual knowledge, an awakened and illumined understanding, which is not different from this ultimate light. Though transcendent, this light is intimately present in all our experiences. All our mental conceptions and perceptions, our thoughts and feelings, are revealed by this ultimate light. If this light were absent, there would be no experience. But this light is never absent, and there is nothing outside it to be absent from.
This light is kind of synonymous with creation itself, with reality itself. Without this light, there can be no reality. There can be no experience.
Well, let there be light.
Right.
The Big Bang, this big blast of light that then settled down into solid things over, a really short period of time, as far as time, the entirety of time goes, but still a while. First it was all light, and then it started getting heavier and thicker, and then it was soup for a while, and then the soup started congealing and then turning into, the stuffs that make up the other stuffs that make up the other stuffs, So, yeah.
Well, it's crazy because the whole Big Bang is traced back to something that's smaller than a pinprick. It's infinitesimal in size, yet it contained all of this universe.
And the only reason why we think of it is because of the way we were observing the expanding of things. We reverse back in time with our minor understanding of the, now mind you, we understand quite a bit, but still it's a minor understanding of the universe. And we think, okay, it's this single point, you know, because that's the smallest we can get. You can't get an inverse point. You can't get like, you know, like if you go smaller and smaller and smaller, you can't go beyond the smallest of the small. So you just have to call that a point.
Yeah, yeah.
Where it's like, well, if that point contained everything in the universe, you could say that the universe, that point was as big as the universe. So really, like,
it's almost like a hole in space and time, and it's infinitely deep, just like it's infinite out in that
Well,
direction. As far as we can tell, it's infinite on the micro level as
you
well.
know, I would say maybe, you know, if we're to go with the purely scientific end, is maybe we're just stuck at this scale, and looking back at the other scale, we have to see it as really, really small. Whereas like everything in the universe was that big, so it was basically the same size referentially. You know, one side of the universe to the other side of the universe, well, is, you know, as big as it ever was. But I think it was, what was it on Joe Rogan? I think it was Joe Rogan was talking about. It's like, you know, the whole God creating the universe makes a lot more sense than just the, you know, there was nothing and then the Big Bang.
That was
you
a
know,
great clip. Yeah, it actually makes more sense. And there's this old adage, like an atheist only has to believe in one miracle.
Yeah.
You know, a believer like a Christian has to believe in many miracles, but the one miracle that the atheists believe in is a really big one. They have no explanation for how something came out of nothing. Like there's like a couple hundred or more billion stars in this galaxy, and that's kind of the average, I think, of galaxies. But there's more galaxies than there are stars in any one galaxy, and we're still counting them. Like that's insane.
And then if you combined all the networking connections and all the brains on the planet and all the mycelial forces on the planet, then you get more connections than make up, you know, galaxies in the universe.
Oh yeah, there's more connections in one human brain than there are actually stars in the universe, or is it atoms in the universe, or something insane?
I think it's to this galaxy. But anyway, you know, it's no matter at what level you look, the smallest of the smallest to the biggest of the biggest, there's
they have parity.
It's always infinite.
Yeah.
Infinitely small, so infinitesimal, and infinitely big, infinite.
Yes.
And we're stuck somehow perfectly in the middle.
Yeah.
And everything is
we're on that
made
wiggly
up,
line of the yin yang.
and everything is made up of light. And there's actually things you can do to matter to turn it back into light, and some other particles and stuff like that, but still light, right?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And why do we use this term light? You know, and I think a component of it is, you know, as a species, we're afraid of the dark and the things in the dark and stuff like that. But I think it's more than that, because light, when the sun is out, light is ever pervasive. And the only way to get rid of the light is to literally shield yourself and hide from it.
That's why the light and sun rays and also the eyeball is often used as a symbol for God's awareness, because it's all seen. It's like the light of the sun lights everything on the earth when it comes out, and you can see again, you know, it reveals, it's all revealing. And that's a beautiful notion too. So let's let this fine lady continue now. Jumping back, let's go.
Our life experience appears to contradict this vision of truth, and this is why the Holy Scriptures are needed. They throw light on the spiritual reality. They are sources of higher knowledge of the imperishable. So too are the teachings of the illumined sages who have realized the truth. The final authority is one's own experience, once the apparent obstacles to enlightenment have been removed. This divine knowledge does not reveal itself in us, while our mind remains intensely active and consumed in the outer affairs. Hence the Chandogya Upanishad advises us, therefore one should meditate by becoming calm. To become calm, the mind needs to enter the inner silence with a sense that it is entering the divine presence, the source of all peace and tranquility.
Enter that inner silence, that is as though it is, in fact, the divine presence.
Well, to make it physical, the still water allows the light to penetrate better than the choppy water.
Oh, that's a good metaphor.
It stirs up less dirt.
Yeah.
As well. And ideally, when you're praying, you should also be still. Like the idea is to get a stillness of mind and a stillness of body, and be with God, be with the
Fully
light,
with God,
you know,
yeah.
And not just praying like, hey, like I need stuff in my life,
Yeah.
but like, you know, the active conversation, the calming aspect of the prayer. And, you know, like, and when I go through prayer, there are times where in the prayer, yes, you're saying stuff in this conversation, but then there's periods of time of no chatter, no talking in the mind. Or, it's very much like, well, it is meditation. Prayer and meditation are pretty much this. They do the same thing.
Yeah.
Really. When you're doing your rosary, you're going through a process that puts you in this meditative state. You say, each line, get to your Hail Mary. Each line, get to your Hail Mary.
So you're doing that inner and outer process.
Yeah. And then you can see the Buddhists with their, the beads, the same thing. It's the same thing. And it's no coincidence that, Hinduism is getting to what Christianity got to, because I do think, we as a species were prepared by those before us to get a greater understanding of God, our relationship with God.
Amen.
Now it goes awry sometimes, but to err is to be human. So
right,
that's just what it is.
What it is, man. Yeah. Let's continue now. Jumping back in. Heaven is within.
When Jesus declares, "The kingdom of heaven is within you," he's turning our attention away from the outer world and directing us to seek truth within our own being. If we want self-realization, this inner quest should be the main intention of our life. For if we seek it above everything else, we shall find fulfillment. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you.
Ah, yes. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, for heaven, that state of enlightenment and oneness with God, is within. So Jesus, his teachings are turning our attention within to seek the truth in our own being, our own sense of beingness. This is the doorway. This inner quest should be the main intention of life. I do verily believe that is correct. I believe that we are missing a final stage of our maturation in modern times. I believe that the capacity for self-realization or enlightenment is that final stage of human beings. That's when you are truly an actual wise adult. And we've been missing this for a long, long time. Lao Tzu, who wrote the Tao Te Ching, who, he was thousands of years ago, he said that there were ancients of ancients that were like him, and there was very, very many of them during a previous golden age of humanity. Who knows if that's true or if that's just, some kind of old story. But that's a fascinating idea. And we do know we have this capacity. We have studied Zen Buddhist monks in the midst of meditation, and we see how their whole brain is lit up and all parts of the brain are working in concert, like they are in some kind of really deep transcendent flow state. And we've heard, expressions of this from all the world's great wisdom traditions, that this capacity is here for all of us. So let's dive into the Upanishads now. Look at a parallel.
The Chandogya Upanishad compares the spiritual realm within us to a golden treasure buried in the ground, which we may walk over again and again without realizing its nearness and availability. In the Gospels, the kingdom of heaven is also compared to a treasure that is buried in a field.
Yes.
The seeker is like one who has realized that this is the place where the treasure is to be sought and found. He sells everything he has and buys the whole field. One can interpret the whole field as the mind, in which is hidden the treasure of the supreme truth as its very source. Buying the field and making sacrifices to do so signifies our determination to cultivate our mind through tranquility and purity, charging it with thoughts that point to our divinity. Thus the mind prepares itself for the revelation of the true nature of the light, which is its source.
Self through your sacrifices, and then you're cultivating, you're cultivating the treasure from the field.
It's like you're giving up the egoic wants and needs of the having mode and changing over for thoughts that are focused towards the being mode. So you're helping rehabitualize the way the mind thinks and learning to take ownership of the mind rather than being led around by the mind.
Yeah, you're not having the field, you're being in the field.
Yeah.
Out in the field.
Yes.
And that actually touches on this non-dual nature too, because yes, we're scaling down and going in and getting to that quiet place underneath everything, but then we're also opening up, growing this field, growing this understanding at the same time.
Yeah. So once we realize this hidden treasure that we've been walking over all of our lives, then we can start to cultivate that field and actually take that ownership of it.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Isn't that cool? Alrighty, so let's go ahead and continue now. Let's get down into how meditation, worship, service, philosophical inquiry can help us in this realization process. Let's go.
This process is brought about by such practices as meditation, worship, service, and philosophical reflection on the spiritual truth. What is the result of this seeking? Concerning this quest, Jesus says, according to the Gospel of Thomas, "Let him who seeks not cease from seeking until he finds. And when he finds, he will be troubled. And when he has been troubled, he will marvel, and he will reign over the all." Oh.
We'll take full ownership
Once
over
we
the
have
all.
been told that the Lord is our true self and is to be sought within our own heart, and we accept it, once we find, so to say, that this is where truth has to be realized, we will be troubled. Because we will be faced with an inner challenge, which we cannot evade. We may postpone the quest or delay it, but it will always trouble our conscience. For we can no longer claim to be ignorant of the path we have to follow. There are no longer any excuses to hold us back, or if we have been deflected from the path, to stop us from making a new beginning. Sooner or later, we will have to face our inner state and take responsibility for removing the rust from the mirror of our heart and clear our vision of egoism and self-deception.
Yes. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, so
Yeah, well,
meditation, worship, service, philosophical inquiry, leading us to find that truth will initially trouble us, right?
yeah. And then,
We can no longer claim to be ignorant. We now know what is possible.
Well, yeah,
we see our glaring inconsistencies.
we know that there's a problem now.
Yes.
And then we have to do something about it.
Yep.
And then after we move through our troubles, we'll marvel. We'll have that
Yes.
the contact with, what was it called, the numinous, the great and awe-inspiring. And when you move through that and you go into that, that's when you'll have you'll reign over all.
Existence, consciousness, bliss, and you will have complete control over your mind, and you will reign over all of the inner kingdom, so to speak.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yep. Alrighty. So
Thomas
so no more excuses to stop us. Sooner or later, we must face that inner world and take responsibility for clearing our vision and our way of seeing from ego and self-deception. Beautiful. So let's go ahead and jump on to the next. Oh.
But once our vision is cleared, even partially, we will marvel at the inner revelation. We will realize that the source of happiness and divinity is our own essential being. Finally, we will know that there is no divinity other than our true self, our Atman,
Our actual
pearl
eye.
of great price.
Pearl of great.
And we will recognize that our true nature is ever free, fearlessness ever fulfilled.
Fearless and ever fulfilled.
This natural joy is also the promise of Adhyatma Yoga.
Anything to say on that? Okay, so inner realization, it's like the source of happiness and divinity is our actual essential being. That's where I got the idea for the title of this podcast, Actual I. What is the actual I? The process of self-inquiry helps us to expose our egoic mind and see how the mind ticks. And we realize, well, I'm not the thoughts. I see the thoughts. I'm not my emotions. I can see my emotions. Who is the me that has the thoughts? How can you describe yourself without words or ideas? Yet there is this underlying awareness that all thoughts and ideas and sensations, emotions appear to. And that is the actual I. And the more we deepen our relation with that and live from that, the more we are self-realized.
Well, the light does not need to be defined to be light. It just needs to be allowed to shine.
Yes.
By removing all
Yes.
the crap that we put over
Yes.
top of it. You know,
Yeah.
the I am this, the I am that, you know, I've got this going on and this, that, or the other. And it's like, not to say that, the identities we have in life, like, father, mother, brother, coworker and all that stuff aren't important for differentiating and talking to each other. But when it really comes down to it, if you want to get to the true self, the true divine self underneath it all, you just need to clear off the lens that the light shines through.
Yes. Yes. Peel back all these onion layers is another metaphor to get down to the essential.
Yeah, and there's some, when Jesus offered his yoke to everybody, that's part of that too. You share that yoke. It's a lighter yoke than the one that you're going to be carrying by yourself, because Jesus will take the weight of it through his shining, and you will shine with him. And it's also pairing with as well. So it's yet again back to a relationship of love, like at the beginning of the universe or before the beginning of the universe. If we believe that, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. If we're going along that line, love it. Let's see, what time is it? Do a little bit more, but then unfortunately I have to go somewhat early because the river is rising pretty high, and my dock is already at danger levels, so I gotta make sure it doesn't get destroyed.
Right? Yeah, no worries. And I just have one more clip for this first part. We'll finish this video next week, guys. Well, actually, next week, I believe that's the week I'm going out of town for a family reunion, so we'll be back in the week after next. So look forward to that. This will give everybody time to catch up if you like what's happening here. Do make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you so much. And like and subscribe this fine lady as well. That's Shati Sadan. You can see her linked in the description. Guys, we very much appreciate you being here. And if you have any thoughts and questions, share them now. We'll cover them at the very end of the episode here. So let's go ahead and jump into this last little clip here. Go. Rolling.
Oh, we read in the Bhagavad Gita. With the mind unattached to external contacts, we find the joy which is in the self. With the self engaged in the contemplation of Brahm, we attain the endless joy. People sometimes say that they belong to a religion. This idea of belonging should not blind us to the fact that the goal of religion is transcendence and universality, freedom from all limitations. This is implicit in Jesus' teaching that the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath.
Yeah.
Religion, if rightly practiced, purifies the mind. In that inner purity, the higher insight or wisdom arises, and that wisdom is its own authority.
Yes. Just because some bad things have been not done in the name of this or that religion does not mean that the actual religion itself, if rightly practiced, has merits. And just all you have to do is look at examples of Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King, and so forth.
Yeah, and when Jesus stated that the Sabbath was made for man, not man made for the Sabbath, he was trying to heal people. And the Pharisees the Pharisees were saying, no, you can't do that because it's the Sabbath. You shouldn't be working. And he was just like, dude, the works have to be done.
Yeah, if a calf needs to be rescued, a calf needs to be rescued.
Yeah, he
man.
goes on to actually say is like, well, if one of your herd goes and runs off on the Sabbath and is going to go hurt itself, are you not going to go after it? Come on now. And the Pharisees were at a time like Jesus in the sense of rule breakers and expanding the faith from what was their name? It was the people before the Pharisees that only believe the very early stuff. I can't remember the word. I'm sorry. I'm terrible at this. But so the Pharisees were actually an evolution out of previous people that are the previous Jews, and then they expanded. And Nicodemus basically admitted this. And that's why he was so curious about Jesus, because he's like, well, we the Pharisees were heretics in our own right, bringing in these new lessons into it to make our lives better. And then the Pharisees stagnate, and then we get Jesus, who's bringing in this new, but not new, because you can go through the Old Testament, you can see all the primers for Jesus coming. And yeah, so, man was not made for religion. The religion was made for the man. And what does the religion do? The religion helps open us up into the divine and helps remove the barriers that keep us from being wholly what we are. Now, mind you, there are rules that you have to go by, in practice and what would you call it? I guess, yes, practice. In any practice, in a Zen Buddhist practice, you do certain things to help get you there. I don't think that's what we're talking about when we're, removing restraints. We're removing the restraints of, your lust for the stuffs of the world, the ego that separates you too much from somebody else. So then all you do is identify with your ego and their ego, opposed to actually identifying one light source or one avenue of light and another avenue
ever
of light.
changing and growing. We're seeing each other as caricatures, as like symbols, very low resolution symbols, and then that ends up being what we relate with, and we're not even really relating with that actual human in front of us anymore. We're relating with an idea in our head that we hold of them.
So one thing I guess we could instead of saying like I am a Christian or I am a Catholic or I am a Hindu or I am yada yada, it's I am practicing Catholicism. I am practicing Orthodoxy. I am practicing Judaism. I am practicing because, well, at the end of the day, it's like, well, I am a Christian. What does that mean? Well, it means you are practicing these things. So instead of I am, it's I am doing,
you are
or I am being
a way. Which
instead of I am having an identity as well, I am doing, I am being. Yet again, a modal shift from the having mode to the being mode. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what she was getting at with this. She's a little bit more artful with her language than I am, but
Yeah, and that's...
I am dirt people.
It's a beautifully well-done video. I just randomly happened across this because I was watching, things on non-dual Christianity and metamodern Christianity, and came across Shanti Sadan made this video 9 years ago, and it is as relevant as it ever was. Non-dual Christianity and mystical Christianity has been around for a long time, ever since Christianity's inception, depending on what you've looked at and what you want to believe.
And you could say all the previous religions were just preparing us for that.
I say all the great, I believe all the great wisdom traditions do ultimately point to non-duality. And I think that non-duality is the marker. That's the sign of something that is pointing to that same way of being, that being mode, trying to bring us back into a more heart-centered way of being rather than just a mental way of interacting with reality. We become led around by our minds. And we think that we are the storms of thought and the ideas that appear in our minds. But no, we have thoughts. We have ideas. Who is the you that has them? That is the study of this podcast. And we invite you guys to come along with us into this inquiry into what is the actual I. We love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's do a quick good news roundup before we drop out here, guys. Got a little very intriguing piece of good news for you here. Packet of fungi inside new diapers breaks them down in landfill, turning it to mycelium. That's mushrooms. Recent discoveries in microbial digestion of plastic have finally left the lab and entered the real world in the form of HIRO, or Hero diapers, the world's first diaper manufactured to be eaten by fungi. So it's not just going to sit there for the next several hundred years.
Yeah, diapers are a big problem too.
Yeah, every year, over 18 billion diapers are discarded into U.S. landfills. And if they aren't manufactured with natural cellulose, which we could be making all plastics out of by now, then they're going to be there for 500 years, leaking microplastics and chemicals into the soil. And who doesn't love having plastic in their brain? Actually, I think no one loves having plastic in their brain. And we all do at this point. And that's leading to all kinds of fun things, heart attacks and strokes and whatnot. With that unfortunate truth out of the way, dig this dirty great news. A pair of serial entrepreneurs, that's hilarious, okay, have, pun intended for sure, have developed diapers designed to be broken down into soil by fungi, and they're practically flying off the shelves. Every Hero Micro digestible diaper comes with a small packet of shelf-stable plastic-eating fungi. Parents simply throw the packet away with the used diaper. No extra steps required.
Okay, so it's not in the diaper on the baby's
Yeah,
hiney. It's
right.
It's something. Okay,
It's something you just throw
I
in
was
your
like,
trash
that sounds like a yeast
with the
infection waiting to
diaper. Yeah.
happen.
Once the diaper reaches a landfill, the fungi activate in the presence of moisture and begin to break down the diaper's materials from the inside out. These fungi secrete enzymes that target and sever the carbon bonds in plastic, transforming the waste into mycelium and nutrient-rich soil over time. This is really
It breaks it back
world-saving.
down
This
to
is
hydrogen
amazing.
and carbon.
What good news. The response has been nothing short of electric. People are hungry for real solutions, and this one hits home both literally and globally, says Tiro. I'm not going to even try and say that last name. Co-founder of Hero Technologies and pioneer in the now 2.7 billion global mushroom coffee industry. Ah, cool. I do like mushroom coffee. I drink Laird's mushroom coffee.
It's not coffee, it's mushroom juice.
It's mushrooms and it's got some coffee in it.
Yeah.
But it's got chaga, it's got lion's mane, it's got what else does it have? It's got cordyceps, it's got all kinds of good stuff. If we break down the diaper, we can break down anything. Once we've gained enough market share, we can partner with other brands and bring this technology to the world. Unlike traditional end-of-life methods that require high energy inputs or create harmful emissions, Hero's fungi-powered solution is scalable, sustainable, and truly circular. When the plastic-eating fungi were first discovered by scientists over a decade ago, their potential has remained locked in labs until now. Good job, Hero, for pioneering this and bringing this concept to the market so that we can start doing this with more products. It's amazing. It's literally in mushrooms, DNA that breaks down complex carbon materials. So all the plastics everywhere we could be taken care of right now. There just needs to be some market incentive for companies to start doing that. You would hope that they'd be ethically driven because there certainly is a market. We know
Well, you
that.
just need to start doing it, prove that it works, and start making money doing it. And then other people will be like, oh,
want to tap that blue ocean
okay.
too.
Yeah. Well, monkey see, monkey do. We are just very evolved monkeys, right? Oh, no, another heresy. Shouldn't say that.
Yeah, no, right. Yeah.
I know we're apes, okay. And
Ever since the schism, we've been trying to pretend that you're supposed to read the Bible literally. I have qualms with that, but we can talk about that.
You can read
further,
it both
guys.
literally, literally just means in its actual form or figuratively. And if you don't read it both, you don't get the full picture.
Yeah, because it is historic, and then it's like some crazy, trippy kind of like strange, dreamlike story.
Well, how do you talk?
Then it's myth, and then it's
Well, how do you talk about things that can't be talked about except with a
it's
story?
It's genealogy for pages at points, and so there's a lot of history. There is. You're right. Yeah, so it can be read both literally and figuratively, and it should, I believe. So yeah, if you guys disagree, make sure you throw that down in the comment. Let us know, and we can talk it out next episode. Thank you once again so much for being here. Do make sure to like and subscribe. What's up, Rumble fam? We're so happy to be here. This is our second episode on Rumble, trying to figure out how to port all of our old episodes from YouTube, 200-something episodes, over here to Rumble as well. And YouTube, geez, guys, you have removed that capacity to port videos, auto-port videos over to another service. What a monopoly. Talk about monopolistic
Other
practices.
good news is Google is failing. The monolith is starting to crumble.
Yeah, don't be evil and then take away that motto and think you're going to get away with,
Yeah. But anyway.
Anyways, that's a whole other concept or conversation. But that's it, guys. We love you so much. Thank you for being here. I've been Chris.
I've been DJ.
And we will see you next time. Let's dance our way on out.
Ooh. Yeah. Jesus.